Welcome to #SetLife.
I don't know when I'll ever get used to that thing.
I don't know that you need to get used to it because I kind of love how uncomfortable it makes you. But, I mean, how can you not say that it didn't sound more beautiful every time I play it?
That one was elegant and graceful.
Thank
I
you
enjoyed
so
it quite a bit.
I've been working on it just for you.
What do you call that?
This is a stylophone. This
I've
is
never
the David
seen
Bowie
one of
version.
those.
Yeah, they've been around since the 70s.
Very cool.
And probably went by the wayside for a reason, in Brad's opinion. But
I'm not saying that. I just imagine that you hit play and the first thing you hear is that high-pitched tone. And if you're not ready for it, you might, I don't know, something wrong with my radio. Is there now something wrong with my ears? Hello, everybody.
definitely something wrong with the system.
Like Joe said, welcome to #SetLife. I am Bradford, and tonight we have with us Tennille Tereskevich. Tennille, welcome.
Welcome
Thank
to
you. Thank you for having me.
Could you tell our listeners a little bit about what you do in the film industry?
Yeah, so my first love is acting. That's what really brought me to the industry. But in parallel, when I did my first independent acting gig, they didn't have locations or things planned out, rehearsals, meals, stuff like that. So I just started planning it because I really wanted to have that lead role. And so then they gave me a credit as a producer. And I was like, oh, that's what a producer does. And so it just kind of stuck.
Okay.
So I'm a pretty good planner and organizer. And so I do like to help, the filmmakers, that I'm part of their projects and things like that, because I know how hard it is to make movies.
Yeah.
You are an amazing organizer.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you.
Definitely, and we've actually said this on this show before, but the most organized set that to date still that I've ever worked on.
Aw.
Yeah, I've worked on some pretty big budget stuff, and it's still kind of haymaker lefts and rights. But yours is like, at least those haymakers are planned. Like, oh, I accounted for that.
Yeah.
We should move this way.
Right.
Like,
Well, yeah, I
not
do
the,
try.
"Oh, there's no left siding to Neil.
Well, there's just so many variables. So just trying to find your plan B and your plan C. So that way when things do
Exhibit A.
happen, when things happen, you can just kind of roll with it and just know that's what was supposed to be, but you're not like stressed or thrown off. It might not be what you thought it was going to be, but it's what was meant to be.
Right.
So,
So,
yeah.
Rolling with the punches.
Yes.
what? So that's a very interesting way of getting into. You kind of fell into a role and then accepted it and like decided to develop.
Yeah.
What were some of the steps that you took to understanding how to move forward in the next project as a producer?
Well, it definitely took a lot of time from 2016. So at that point, excuse me, I was realizing, that I was the most mature person on most of the sets and things like that I was going to. And so what I decided to do was start an LLC to make it legit. And I'm glad that I did that because then that enabled bigger projects and projects that I could lead. And then that ultimately became, giving creative input into the characters and the stories that I was producing and things like that. So it all kind of, slowly got that way. So it took years before like my husband even seen anything like, so many projects you go and do and then nothing happens with it,
Shout out Steve.
Yeah. Yep. So,
T.
yeah. So Steve, didn't get to see anything for forever, and then it just kind of progressed from there. So in 2018, I helped Peter Poulos with his first short film, The Void, and then I was in a short film called Goldilocks. And then really in 2019 was when it started picking up. And a lot of that was because in 2018 was when I first met Matt Santia, and I had hired him to help me write a screenplay on my father-in-law's story because I wanted to get it on paper before it evaporated or I lost the details. So at that point, I had broke down the script and I was pretty aggressive in, casting and wants and things like that. And I looked at the budget and I was like, oh my gosh, this is just like not even feasible. So I set it off to the side and, like any motivated person would do, is just go out and do what I could do with what I had. So it was just a lot of short films in 2019. But really good films and really just exploring a lot of different genres. So, there were horror films and then also Christian films. So, and LGBTQ. So just no boundaries, just really trying to figure out who do I like working with.
Feeling where you fit in.
Yeah, exactly. So got to work with a lot of, different people and we essentially did what we called a bundled premiere. So it would have been like October of 2019. So about 6 months or so before the pandemic.
Yeah.
We put everything on one timeline, rented out a theater at Imagine and had everybody come. And, once you got it on the timeline, it was about 2 hours. So I was like, oh my gosh. Instead of doing short films, I think we're ready for a feature.
Yeah.
So literally, so that was October. I want to say by that November, December, we were meeting, very small team and very small, like no budget film. Mm-hmm. So essentially that's when I pitched to Matt Santia, let's do a feature film. But here are the parameters, because I knew that, we could only do so much and I didn't have a lot of money and I didn't want to go and ask for investors. Like I don't want to get investors until I can prove an ROI and that I know,
So
the back end of the business. Yes.
Project.
So I was self-funding it. And so I called it the Under 10 Project, which was 10 or less locations, 10 or less characters for $10,000 or less. Mm-hmm. And so we did make that through production, but then, there's just always so many more expenses and things like that. So
crafty and...
Yeah,
but even
and post-production and your art, like all that stuff, like very quickly adds up. But it still... was a feature film and was that opportunity then to go to AFM and to seek out distributors. And so it was a huge, huge learning process, just knowing then what to do next. And
everyone worked so cohesively on that set.
Oh, it was so much fun.
We were all there as a learning experience, getting to know each other, but it was just friendly, professional, appreciative. It was one of my favorite sets today. Pivotal.
I would feel the same. I feel the same way, and even though the agency and other film sets have also went very well, that one I think was just special because it was the first. Yeah. So it's like that nervousness.
It was what a
anticipation.
Great headstone. You know what I mean? What a great springboard.
Yeah. Well, I felt like very safe because I had
professional appreciation right from the start.
Matt Santia on one side and Peter Poulos on the other side. And then you, Joseph, came into the mix because there was another feature film going on and our audio people were on a different film for that weekend and we're double booked. And I met you on the Help Wanted set and we just were sitting there and you said you went to Specs for audio. And I was like, hey, we're looking for somebody. So
the lighting guy does more than
you do. Yep, you do a lot of stuff.
I know a lot of stuff.
Yep, you know a lot of stuff, and
we've all been there. We've all done all these things, and I love to dip my hat in all sorts of pools and help people out. But there comes a point where you have to realize, what is my strong suit? What's going to take me the farthest,
right?
And get me to where I'm comfortable now. When I have slow times, I can focus on my acting. Mm-hmm. I'm not worried about a slow time in work. I'm like, oh, this is. I can afford to go do this now and be that.
Well, there's so many things that you can do.
Self that I enjoy as well. That hasn't been forgotten in my professional endeavors, but sometimes goes to the wayside.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think you do have to balance yourself, and as opportunities,
Balance
start
as a
and
creative
finish.
is very important.
Yeah. But what was really amazing is then you brought Bradford on, so we got to meet Bradford on that set, and that's how what was validating to me, because I knew, Joseph, that you had been on more sets than most of us that were doing that feature film. And so to see you come back, for those other 3 weekends and then to bring a friend, I think that just spoke volumes that, we were all kind of like figuring like, this is more than just making, a movie.
And I felt that
creating.
on the set. Like I was like, this is more than just another set that I was on. This is
production.
This was a brotherhood building type thing. And I was like, if I didn't bring my brother with me, I was kind of cheating myself and the group, let alone him. So yeah, actually, you were the last consideration of the whole thing. I was more concerned about what you brought to the table.
I'm glad to have been there.
No, I'm glad. I'm super glad. And what was so awesome is I feel like Bradford kind of was just there to do everything and anything, and
absolutely anything I could. I gripped quite a bit.
Yeah, and then
he was as appreciative to be there as you were to have him, and it was nice.
Well, and then it was just so nice to see your evolution since then, because you're pretty much branded as an AD.
Yes,
you would say,
correct.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's come a long way.
Yeah, and you're actor too. So
he's older than me.
I didn't hear what you had said.
And you're an actor as well.
I am. Joe and I met back in theater. I started as a dancer, and acting just seemed like more fun because I didn't want to be a dancer anymore. I don't want to say forced upon me. That wasn't the case. But like I wasn't like, hey, I want to go dancing. And but I'm so really glad that I did, because I even think today that in my editing, my dancing background plays a huge role in understanding beats and rhythm. Even though I'm rhythmless personally, the same doesn't go for my editing.
You do all right there, buddy.
But I would very much be interested in exploring. Actually, Birth of a Savage just came out, and that's going to be one of my first speaking roles. I was kind of thrown into a part where we didn't have it. I was like, I'll do it.
Okay.
And streaming right now on Tubi, Birth of a Savage. You get to watch Bradford Clark here as a gay man. Yeah.
It was a role.
I'm going to take a role.
Yeah.
I'll take a role.
Yeah.
We just recently went to the Master Dragon premiere, and one of his fellow actors and one of our fellow colleagues just pulled us aside for a 15-minute just laugh fest.
Okay.
Jay Skills.
Jay Skills.
Jay Skills was like, man, I just saw you
with his.
I'm glad. Here's the thing. I'm glad it landed. It was. There were no lines. I ended up improvising some things. Fred was audio. He doesn't do MOS, and I delivered. And they were like, do that again.
Yeah.
But I got to experience. You get one of the best compliments a performer can ever get is a fellow performer saying, "Dude, I laughed my ass off at that. That was the best." Yeah, so
felt good.
Kudos to you. Yeah.
How long have you wanted to act? How long has the acting bug been brewing within you?
That's your real bug.
Right, that is the real bug. So I wouldn't say it's acting. I would say it's more so a love for cameras.
Okay.
So how that...
She likes a spotlight.
Well, I guess, the older I get, I don't like the camera as much.
It's okay.
I don't like the camera as much now that I'm getting older, but I do feel like when I was younger, my mom was always really good about capturing moments and taking us out in front of the rose bush and getting photos before an event. And so there was just always a lot of photos, and my teeth were extremely big, and I had a huge smile, and people would always say I was very photogenic. So I, as a child, did desire being a model. I mean, significantly wanted to be a model. Like, actually did some mall fashion shows.
That's where your most selfless praise came from.
Right, right. Well, and to be honest, at the time, like Hollywood seems like impossible,
Right.
and you sit there and think, well, gosh, they got to memorize all these lines when you can just like smile in front of the camera.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So there was probably some laziness there as well. Well, then obviously life catches up. I'm still 5'1". Like I'm not super graceful. Like it just, the model thing just didn't pan out.
Yeah.
But then right around the time of that, no, actually it would have been years before that. I take that back. So it would have been like 2011-ish, I would say, when the incentives were here.
Yeah.
Those
are some good years.
Yeah, so about 2 years after I got on Facebook, a friend on Facebook posted a video that she was one of the extras for the Hung HBO intro.
Yeah. Shout out in Pontiac.
My sister-in-law, Amber Crow, she worked on that as makeup. Yeah.
Okay, and so essentially I was like, wow, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Sign me up. Where do I go?
Apparently John Hamm is quite the gentleman.
I would love to
very
work with John
nice
Hamm.
guy.
Well, I
Sense of
never.
humor galore,
So she told me that she signed up through Real Style. So I did get into Real Style, and I did get like some extra parts and stuff like that.
What about Real Style? Is that still around?
It is.
I've not heard about that. Could you? Is that something?
So Real
We're
Style.
on things like it, like Staff Me Up or Backstage.
I get that. Yeah. I
Yeah,
get
so
that.
Real Style is for extras, and when the incentives were here, basically that's who you signed up through. So I would say they really blew up in the Superman versus Batman movie.
Yeah.
Like it was, but I was in
Transformers and that.
Yeah,
and then
I was in-
the incentives left.
Right. So essentially, for me, I was able to get on one big set before the incentives left.
Dropped off.
It was called the Untitled Tornado Project or something like that on all of the, so it's my first exposure to not real names yet to the movie. But I think it was called Into the Storm when it was released, and it took years for it to come,
Finally
to the theater. But it was okay though, because those 2 years or so, I held on to that performance or, that opportunity for a really long time.
Well,
so
it
got
come
me,
out eventually.
and it got me through a really long time. Like, okay, this is happening. This is going to happen someday. And, that day was just amazing because it was like a big production with trailers. And, I'm just an extra, so I show up in my outfit and, my extra wardrobe selections, and I get there, and then they're looking for featured extras. So, of course, I am just beaming, fucking pick me, pick me.
Foaming at the mouth, pebbles.
Yes, and of course they're they're looking at me, and you can tell they want to, but they don't have anything that'll fit me. So they end up giving me this horrible outfit of yoga pants with a short shirt before that was fashionable, so I was like, I hope I don't have camel toe.
Now, I don't know if this is just a difference of experience, but I often get handed the undesirable role.
Okay.
Often.
Okay.
It's usually the only reason I'm even involved, because I'm already there usually as a gaffer.
Right.
Not always.
Right.
And then the most recent one that's been released, I guess not most recent, because I was in Birth of a Savage for a day as somebody
Melanin.
buying a house. But Melanin,
Yes.
that's now on CW, they had 14 actors turn down this role. And it was...
You did it amazing.
In my mind, the monologue written was mild for what was needed to be conveyed.
Right.
So not only was it almost pivotal that I be the one to do it, because I took it 2 or 3 steps.
Yeah, your
farther
stature
than
was
what
believable.
everybody turned down. I can't be seen this way. And instead of looking at it as I can't be seen that way, what I saw was a pivotal moment for the main character.
Right.
And a realization of why his skin color is not wrong, but his view of skin color is wrong.
Right.
And I had to be that person for the audience, right? Like it wasn't about me; it was about the message beyond that.
Right.
So the more just filthy and degrading I could be,
the more offensive
the message comes through, right?
Yeah.
So
if you're going to do it, you got to own it.
Yes, as an actor,
you have to own it.
I had to
become
and I had to push myself into uncomfortability because if I didn't feel uncomfortable, who's going to believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like to the point where I literally apologized to the guy behind the screen, like, I'm so sorry. Like, this is not me. He was like, no, dude, that was funny.
Yeah.
Like, so it made me feel good. And then like watching myself do it made my skin crawl. But the whole audience went, when the joke got delivered, and I was so vindicated.
Yeah.
I felt beautiful after that.
No, it was a beautiful performance.
So pushing yourself like that.
Yeah.
Like, I took like 4 lines of kind of benign racism and turned it into a 2-minute monologue of, I fucking hate this guy.
So what's ironic is I'm kind of an antagonist in that movie too. So I'm a banker. So I thought they were going to play me off as way more bitchy. I mean, I was definitely the bitchy banker that was, judging him.
Oblivious, bubbly bitch.
Right. But with the music that they put over the performance, I did feel like it was more that bubbly, which I'm okay with that because I was kind of feeling like the same way as well. Like, okay, I'm like this undesirable character.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm undesirable. But at the end of the day, my first, featured extra, like I didn't even see myself like on the show. But what it did do for me is a lot of things. I got to see a professional setup. I got to then go through hair, makeup, wardrobe, which, on a big set, like, right off the cuff was like, shit, this is what I want all the time.
Right.
And then
shout out Darren Brown because we're talking about a Darren Brown set, a Darren Brown film, and he will be on next episode.
Oh, perfect. Yes, that's a great plug. But I think what I ultimately got was close to the production. So then as that featured extra, I was basically like, a person that just got ravished by a tornado. So I'm like, going through my stuff and then like as I'm like acting it out, like all the cameras come rushing to me. So I mean, just the amount of adrenaline that you get, it's like shit. Like you are like dialed the fuck in. Yeah. It's just like a euphoric like feeling, that you can't easily replicate. So I was really hopeful. I was thinking I was going to have like, at least a half a second close up, for years I'm like holding on to it. And it was nothing. But that's when, I kind of started realizing, because then I went to like this real style, kind of mixer thing. And I overheard this girl talking about being in her friend's indie film. And I was, she's like in her 20s and, I'm much older. Mm-hmm. And so I'm asking her like, how do you do that? And she looks at me like, life. I was like, oh, okay.
Look here, bitch.
Yeah, I was like, what the fuck does that mean?
Who do you think you're talking to? And who's standing behind me? Because one of y'all's getting punched in the fucking mouth.
I didn't know how to respond to it other than life. I guess I needed like to find a new life. Like I didn't know how to take that. But then eventually, once my friend sought me out in 2016, at that point I had taken a few acting classes and, didn't really know what much to do, from there. Because then the incentives had went away and it was before I found the indie community. So it was really just, I guess manifesting and just knowing that I would figure it out someday. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I feel like I'm in the swing of things. If anything, I feel like I'm getting ready to kind of like dip a little bit back. Mm-hmm. I've done a lot, during the pandemic, but a lot's changed, since then as well. And my son,
Because you say dip. Okay, and I would say you're about to crest into
Oh,
something
okay.
new, right? It's a difference of perspective
Yeah.
there. Like, so you're kind of stepping
From
back, but what you're saying,
producing,
you're
yeah,
stepping back from producing, but you're now chasing more what you're.
Well, I want the
your dream
creative
of
side.
acting, right?
Yeah.
So you're cresting into
yeah.
a new age of
Okay.
understanding.
I will buy that.
Well, it's for manifestation's sake to be positive, not negative.
Yeah. Well, no, I guess I just feel like, producing is very gratifying, but it's a ton of work. So it's a year plus commitment for
And
these big
you are
projects.
just naturally amazing at it. So, like, how could you not embrace it? But still, it has led you farther from your ultimate goal,
Right.
that of creative
Right.
fulfillment,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Which is
yeah, because then it
acting.
becomes more the business and the management of
You
people.
are amazing at it.
Well, thank you. I do.
we
I do
will be
appreciate
trying to pull
it.
you back.
Yeah, no, I do appreciate that, and I do want to help. Everybody in my circle as they're doing their projects. I just don't want to be like the lead person responsible.
Oh,
and,
of course, I understand that.
things like that. But I definitely believe in reciprocity and bartering and keeping the ball rolling.
So let me ask you a couple of questions. With wrapping your most recent project as a producer,
yes.
it was a whole different style of project
Yeah.
than what you've done, and I imagine getting into it and planning that was a culmination of lessons that you've learned.
Absolutely.
What do you think is one of the most valuable lessons you've learned in your time on set as an actor or as a producer or any other role?
So I feel like there's maybe not necessarily one specific thing that stands out. I think it's a whole bunch of small lessons that you learn. And a lot of times you can't apply them to the next project because you've already made a commitment or you've already made a decision, or you know what I'm saying? Like I'm a big firm believer to like kind of stay the course, unless there is something big and dramatic that would create a change. Otherwise, I think it can confuse people and, just change things too much. But I would say the biggest thing is don't bite off, more than you can chew. Like, I think it's definitely good to have, a big vision and maybe some elements not knowing how you're going to do it, but you should really make sure that you do have the money and the skills to do what you're setting out to do or what you're proposing and marketing to the other project makers. Right. Or otherwise, I do think you're going to disappoint people. So I think just honesty and transparency is by far the biggest thing. And, to go back to that project, it's called The Agency, and it's an 8-part comedy series. And really there was, there wasn't a budget, a funded budget. It was a self-funded budget.
Right.
So there was definitely enough money, to give everybody a very small day rate and locations and food and, all that kind of stuff. But if you can't guarantee those basics, then it's going to be a gamble. Right. So I would say that's the thing that I see most people, kind of stumble with in the indie space is they're not properly resourced. And it doesn't have to be huge resources, but you just have to manage and budget what resources you have so you can get the project completed.
Do you think it's more valuable? You had talked about ambition as far as things that you intend to do with your script. When it comes to planning something large, you've got a script written, it's got some ambitious ideas. Is it more important for you to tackle it with whatever resources you have, or do you feel it would be better than to reconceptualize maybe the impact you were trying to go for in a more resourceful method?
I think that goes back to balance. So a lot of times, surrounding yourself with the right people and, people that creatively are on the same page, I think that it is more feasible to lean into that higher vision. It's almost like a mastermind. So just building upon that idea and it becoming everybody's collective idea. And I think that's what Joseph felt on If I Can't Have You, and that's what we had even more so, I think, with
Like
the
he brought me in as
agency.
utility, like Fred had tennis elbow, and really he just needed a boom op. But I just saw gaps.
And then you ended
filled
up
them as
right,
I
and then
felt
you
was
ended up being like an
necessary.
interrogator, like so.
I filled in where I felt was necessary without feeling like I was stepping on any toes or crossing. But I helped Josh grow as a gaffer. I helped Peter grow as an action filmographer. Like I helped with some stunts. And
Oh yeah, and special effects, right?
yeah,
and so
just wherever it was needed to fit.
right, and
I
so
even stepped away from blood to show Brad how to build a jib.
Right,
and it came
right,
back to blood
right.
because Sean was using it wrong.
I spent
Sean,
the day making flesh.
yeah. So
the brain goop to
so
blow your head
right,
off.
that's what
Yeah.
those were the special effects I was thinking of. But yeah, so I think it is just a balance of what resources you have, and that could be money, it could be skill, it could be trading in other credits and other things. So it's amazing how much of making a movie or a series is like a puzzle, and you've got all the pieces, but you've got to lay them out in a strategic order. So
100%.
so for me, it's, pushing it as far as possible, but also recognizing, what resources you have. And I feel like that's what we did a lot with the agency is, it's a, 8-part series about, a Detroit-based talent agency. And the female character, Dusty Buttons, basically takes it over from her dad. And so she's got a lot to prove, and she doesn't have a ton of experience. And essentially, it's very mockumentary-esque, so a lot like The Office or Parks and Recreation. So you get those side interviews or confessionals.
Yeah.
And so
much fun. To
it was so much fun. But half of the cast and crew work day jobs. So this production was very different, like you had said, in that we really were just filming on Sundays. And so it was just very aggressive to try and get an episode done in a day.
When we were on set, it was
all
hands on deck, guns akimbo, just
Yep. So what the formula was, and I'll kind of spill that a little bit. So essentially, we were targeting a 30-minute episode, and so what the strategy was, or the what we took to the writers was we wanted to do a lot of improv. So very much at that time, we were looking at Curb Your Enthusiasm, so it was semi-scripted. Right. And so we went to the writers and in my mind, it would still have a one-pager, with what's the location, what's the scenario, if there's any key lines, things like that. So it'd almost be a version of maybe reality TV, but you would still have these fictitious characters and situations. So when we met with the writers, what we basically, agreed on is it would be a one-page script in the traditional screenwriting format to get the scene right. Yep. And it was a one-page limit, so you could print it off, and it's so quick and easy. And essentially, it basically would set up a scenario then for those actors then to carry on. So the thought was, okay, they'd write one page, which usually translates to 1 minute on film.
Right, but we'd be allowed to improv
but we could
a whole extra minute.
Absolutely, however long. So we thought it would be about 30 minutes.
I found that extremely refreshing.
Liberating.
A lot of the actors I was in scenes with weren't as familiar or comfortable with improv as I am. So I found them crutching, kind of leaning on the script
right, but then it makes
much.
you a bit right. But then
it gave you
a lot more. Right,
sure.
I mean, Otis was this big of a character, and then by the end,
I'm the comic relief.
Right,
I was just supposed to be a little sprinkle, and
right,
it kind of became like a nougat.
Right. Well, yeah, and so it really just. Then gave that opportunity for creativity for the actors, because, something I didn't really realize was that film really is the director's medium. So when you're on set, a lot of times, like, you are kind of just doing what needs to be done. And, some sets you can bring your own, perception of it, but it is pretty limiting. So I just thought this would be more creative, and as a producer, it was a unique way to get more pages in a unique way.
Yeah.
So essentially our filming days, and because of the low day rates, I was, extremely dedicated to making sure that we had very manageable days on set. So we were essentially a 9 a.m. call time with a 7 p.m.
It was so
wrap
smooth.
time. And I
It
would
was
say
so
at least
smooth.
3 times we wrapped early.
Correct.
There was always good snacks, good food. Lunch was always on time.
We had just
people who drink
good
coffee
people.
didn't have to want for coffee. I'm not one for the coffee.
No.
I also
Kudos to the
Melinda and
Melinda.
Melinda and Deb, definitely took care of us in that sense. But
Melinda brought me my version of coffee. So,
Yeah.
it's all copacetic. It was a very fun set. It was very relaxed. It was very professional. It was very just fun.
I agree. And I'm super proud of what we have, as well. And so definitely a lot of things that we benchmarked are there, but it's also our version of it. And anyways, I do hope that it will find, the right audience.
I do too, because I believe, like, if we can go for a season 2, they're like, I have a vision.
I know.
There's a lot of stories still left to be.
I know, I
talk to the writers, but I have a vision.
So I do fantasize about.
We dabbled in making fun of our community.
Yeah.
I think we need to walk the
Yeah.
plank on that. Shit.
Yeah.
We tipped our toes in the
Right,
water.
right.
I want to go knee deep.
Yeah.
Where
At least
can
ankle deep.
where can the listeners follow progress?
So for the agency, essentially we're in post-production. We still have a little ways to go because, again, everybody's, working their day jobs in between.
So we're shooting for marketing in
I would say marketing.
early summer, but release more fall.
Fall. Yep.
Yeah.
So I feel
Fall
like
24.
I feel like this content is a fall 24 release. I will take the same approach of the wide net of distributors just to see what they have to say and things
100%.
like that. But I do feel like with this one, there's the CW, there's Tubi, there's YouTube. I think that there's enough outlets now that maybe we can just go directly there and not go through a distributor that's going to keep, 20 to 30%. So I would like to explore that.
Yeah, take the time to get it right.
Yeah, right. So if that does take a little bit more time.
We do want to go forward. We all had so much fun. All of us want to revisit those characters again,
well, yeah, and I
push them to the next level, the next boundary.
I'm holding off because I don't want to get anybody excited prematurely, but I do
you also don't want to make
fantasize
the wrong call because you're excited.
Right, exactly. So I think we need to wait and see how season 1 does, because I did, again, executive produce and basically I'm out. I'm tapped out.
It was so much fun.
But it was so worth it. I do feel like even though I enjoy doing the thrillers, I just feel like comedy and making people laugh and rising people, I guess, is more the vibe that I want to leave people with.
I've done theater of all types. I've done television of all types. I've done movies of all types, commercials. That even for me was refreshing to do. It
It's different.
Everything. But the way you handled it, it was so much comfort in the performers. You know what I mean? Even when I was on a scene where I met this guy once or twice and maybe we've rehearsed this once, there was a comfort in the presence on set. I didn't feel like anybody who I'd not met felt uncomfortable with me. There was no should we work this out if this is an uncomfortable joke? It was just kind of there. And that's one of those beautiful unspoken things in sets that are so rare. And I feel like that's one of those that's it components. Like it had that spark for me as somebody involved creatively that like will last forever to me. And I think that's what some projects need to connect to an audience.
And I feel like and that makes me feel good to hear all that, because for me, I feel like making movies is really hard. Making money at movies is even harder. So I know in our last podcast, we talked about Hollywood movies that didn't, pay off, at the end of the day in the box office. And I do remember reading a statistic, and I don't remember though if this is indie and Hollywood or just indie, but they did say that 90% of movies do not make a profit. Yeah. So a big majority of them are a big gamble. So once you know that and accept it, which I did
if
by
it's
that
for
point.
The art, you're probably losing money.
Right. But I felt like for the agency, that's sort of what I was doing, was I wasn't going in with an expectation of money. I don't know if you guys remember the invitation video, but I said, absolutely. I cannot promise you fame or fortune, but I will promise you love and creativity.
Yeah, and fun. You didn't promise fun, but I had some.
Well, I figured that would happen. Yeah, I figured that would happen.
More than you said.
We're coming to the end of our time here, so I want to kind of help direct our listeners towards any place that they can.
Yeah, so we don't have social media started because we're still in the editing process. We're going to pause here at the beginning or at the end of January to make some marketing materials and things like that to get the distribution process started. But I would say for now would be to follow the Film Chick on Facebook and Instagram. That's where I make general, casting.
Absolutely.
Or
this is thefilmchick.com. You have an actual website.
I do have a website as well. Yep. Or at the Film Chick. On social media. And then we do have the IMDb page up and running as of this weekend. It's still a little sparse. Got a lot of.
By the time this comes out,
but by the time, by then we'll have the poster
probably
up, and I'm sure the trailer.
Tantalizing.
Yes.
You had mentioned
titillated.
A series of shorts earlier. Are any of those available to watch?
Those are all available on my website. Boom. So if you go
Entropy was a lot of
yes, yep. Entropy and Autolysis are two that I would strongly recommend. Those would both be in the LGBTQ genre. And then one of my favorite short films is A Full Glass. And because it was my brother who wrote and directed it. So I don't know if you guys ever knew that.
No, and I don't think I've seen that.
I believe you mentioned that to me one time. But Travis.
Travis, good memory.
Amazing.
He's a good person.
He did so well as catering for.
He did help. Yeah, he did help where he could.
And just not like this is not what this man does, and he served us like it was his being.
Yeah.
Like he was like, are you sure that sandwich is good? I'm like, yes, Travis, it's fine. Like he wanted to make sure I was happy with my food. Just with my experience on your family's property. Like he told stories over lunch. It was so animated. Like he's such a...
I wish he could do more. I'm going to make sure that he hears this. So he did recently at his work
He affected my mood on that set. He did. I love his presence.
No, and I want him on set more. But his job is just super demanding. He has a young daughter, so it's just like not the right stage in life. But he did recently play, because he does have another 3-minute movie from the Road Reel Challenge. So it's just like a 3-minute movie. Okay. But that we actually have my dad in it, and he does a pretty good job acting.
Yeah. Nice.
He does a pretty good job acting. And so anyways, he showed those movies at work, to bring more of the human side, I think, to him.
Very
like,
cool.
Hey, like this is what I do outside of work.
Yeah.
Like
and shout out to Mama Barta. Because when we were up at Calabasas,
she
was making us lunch, and we were in those cabins, and those pretzels, when she made me like, I'm a serious pretzel guy. I take my pretzels serious. Those are some of the best pretzels I've ever had in my life.
yeah, she takes pride in feeding people.
Yeah.
And
we
she
were-
did an
we were well
amazing
fed.
job. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is something I would like to do more is like family filmmaking. And I do hope it's like on the cusp, but I think my
Yeah, we
dad
should all just do weekend getaways.
Yeah, I know, I know.
Hey, we're gonna spend
I do-
$60,000 going away together, but
But we're
hopefully
gonna make
it'll
a
be
move
worth
it.
it.
Yeah. No, I do have another like super low budget kind of great outdoors idea up north.
Oh, that would be
where
super
they
fun
have
to
like
do.
a cabin up
I would
there.
love to do something like that.
Yeah, something like
I've
very
I've
low
got,
budget Napoleon
an area
Dynamite.
up north where my family has several cabins, like right there. Like it could be a possibility.
So, yeah, we gotta get out of here.
Well, thanks for
Thank
having
you
me.
very much for taking some time with us and
So happy to
sharing your
have you.
stories.
Yeah, I'm
for a day,
always
yeah.
excited to work with you guys.
So, a couple of films again that If I Can't Have You is available on Tubi.
Tubi.
Miss Rainbow Magic.
On Tubi, Chasing the Ghost. Head over to thefilmchick.com and check out some of the other shorts there. You can visit our website at ufpodcast.podbean.com. Check us out on Instagram at ufostudio.detroit. You can follow me on Instagram at Beeford Clark and Joseph.
Chaotic_artisan. Look for the mohawk and the beard.
And if you have any suggestions or comments, you can email us at ufostudio.detroit@gmail.com. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and thank you again to Neil for spending some time with us. We are out.
Bye.
Getting down with the hashtag set life. Peace out, y'all.